Hi, everyone. So you know what? I should be thanking her, and I should be thanking all you guys, because it's so much fun to be here, and much more fun to see so many excited faces doing cool coding stuff early-ish on a Sunday morning. So you guys are the rock stars, you know? I see you guys as the rock stars. Well, I've done a few things. I've studied computer science. It's been really cool. I do things that I enjoy and I love with computer science. But to me, you guys are the future. And so hopefully you'll be able to see some of the things here and you know, get excited by them, get excited by the stuff that you're doing here at the Computer History Museum, and sort of follow on this with the spark that you light here, okay? So, I start with my journey in 1982. I was about your age, 14 years old. I'd done something cool in school, and so a local newspaper interviewed me. And back there, I said when I was 14 that I want to become a computer scientist. And of course, I also spoke about how I like to do needlework, which is like craft and embroidery, and that I do debate and dramatics, you know, drama and theater. I was fond of music and reading, but I said I wanted to be a computer. In fact, I used to do art too, and that's something I drew at that time. So why did I say I wanted to be a computer scientist? You know, the funny thing, I had never ever worked on a computer in my life until then. It was 1982, personal computers hadn't come into people's homes. I was growing up in India, so they came even later than they did in the US. And this thing called the personal computer revolution just about started in 1982. And only at about the mid-1980s did the computer start coming into people's homes and universities and rich people's homes in the beginning. I had never seen one. So what made me feel like saying that I wanted to become a computer scientist? Well, I had overheard a conversation, you know, between my father's friend and talking to my father. He was a professor of philosophy, I think. And he said, I heard him saying, computers are the way of the future. And that kind of, you know, got me thinking, I want to be part of this future. And so without really knowing what it meant, I said I wanted to be a computer scientist. But guess what? I stuck with that dream. And I did end up doing my undergrad studies, my college in India. I did end up doing computer science. And 10 years after that interview, in the early 90s, I was doing my master's in computer science at Case Western Reserve in Cleveland, Ohio. And it was during my master's thesis that that was pretty life-changing for me. Because as part of my master's project, we started combining music and images to create and program applications for students of music. And believe it or not, for you know, seeing movies and images and sound on computers is, you know, you've grown up with this. But at that time, it was pretty cool to be doing those things. And I started to think, wow, computer science can be used in education too. And that got me, you know, pretty excited. My mom had been a teacher, my sisters were teachers, so I was like, I'm going to use computer science in education. And that was supposed to be that image up there with me thinking, you know, computer science in education sounds really cool. And I went on to become a programmer, software engineer after my master's for several years. But that thought of somehow bringing together education and computer science stayed with me. And another 10 years or so later, I went back to study, this time to Harvard, to the School of Education, to study about what it was about learning that I needed to know, to use technology in education to help children, to help teachers use technology in education. And that was all pretty life-changing and very cool. So I started working with kids, you know, robotics, after-school clubs. I was doing stuff with children your age. That's with a bunch of 6th graders in 2006. And I used to go back to India for the summer sometimes to visit my parents. And so I did this workshop in India with middle and high school kids, again, around programming and engineering and robotics. This is at Stanford, you know, with children building mobile apps, the kinds of things that y'all are learning. And this was around the time that I finally decided to go back for a Ph.D. to Stanford. And these were the things that I started to do research around. And what struck me around this time was that no matter how, no matter where I was, whether it was in India or here with children here, kids around your age didn't really know what computer science was all about. And that struck me as odd. I felt when I was your age, I didn't know about computers because I didn't grow up with them. I didn't see them. But you all have technology all around you. You grow up, you're growing up with iPods and iPads and the internet and cell phones and such cool stuff. And still, at your age, you do coding and things. I feel that it'd be nice for you all to know what computer science is all about and how that plays a role in our lives. And so that became the focus of my research. And here I am in a middle school classroom in Palo Alto. And I started researching this question. I started asking several kids your age, what do you think computer scientists do? Does anyone want to give an answer or two? We won't spend too long on a Q&A, but what do you think a computer scientist does? Okay, maybe it's too early in the morning for Q&A. But these are the kinds of answers I got. They study, design various components of the computer. They fix, build, and program computers. Computer scientists experiment on ways to make the computer do what they want it to do. There are people that work with computers. I think they will make computers more user-friendly and advanced. They code and program. Anything related to computers is what computer scientists do. And I'll go quickly through this. So all of this is true, but it's not entirely true. Computer scientists actually do a lot more exciting stuff than just coding or fixing computers. That almost seems like they're plumbers of computers or something like that. Computer scientists actually do a lot of fun, cool problem solving, and they sometimes may not even be in the field of computer science. They could be working in medicine, they could be making movies, they could be making games, they could be working with politicians to do cool stuff around elections and data science, and they could be working with meteorologists. And it's just absolutely, there's no limit in some sense to where computer science plays a role. And I started, as part of my research, started interviewing computer scientists to create short films to show students, children your age about, what are the different ways in which computer scientists are using their knowledge of computer science and what they do. And, there's no time to go into many of these videos, but I have a couple of other videos that I found, not a couple, actually, a good many videos on YouTube and, publicly available that give you a sense for the kinds of different things that computer scientists do. So I'm going to play one.
Once upon a time, in a faraway land, a student of computer science was studying to get her Ph.D. Her specialty? Hair simulation, writing algorithms to make animated hair look real. And the fairy tale ending for a student of hair modeling?
I was graduating and my advisor had actually heard that Disney was going to be making a film out of
Rapunzel.
Gesundheit.
And I thought, this is perfect.
That's because it's hard to get hairier than this little lady.
She has 70 feet of hair.
That's a lot of hair.
And, her hair is on the screen throughout most of the film.
Goldie, look at this!
As a senior software engineer for Disney Animation, Kelly Ward's job was to work with the art directors to make that hair come to life in the movie Tangled.
Hair simulation is known to be a pretty complex problem in CG animation, because in reality, the human head has over 100,000 strands of hair.
Modeling the movement of 100,000 strands of hair touching each other and bumping into objects is complicated. One shortcut?
We only simulated 173 hairs for each shot.
This rough simulation happens before animation. And here's what it looks like after it's animated. The reason you don't have to simulate all 100,000 strands...
The hairs that are near each other usually tend to move pretty similar to each other.
But then there's the question of what that movement should look like. Well, for a single strand...
There's a lot of measured formulas for how stretchy a hair can be and what its physical parameters are.
There aren't many measurements for a whole head of hair, so Ward and her colleagues did some research.
We studied a lot of real hair. We start to tweak and change the way that we're computing our own hair interactions to try to mimic that.
In this simulation, you can assign a section of hair certain parameters.
We know how much that should weigh, for example.
And then physics-wise, the hairs are treated sort of like springs.
So we use a lot of those physical formulas that you would see in a mass spring system.
Now there's some complications in making Rapunzel's hair truly realistic.
The hair, in reality, would weigh quite a bit. 60 to 80 pounds or something.
Look at those twiggy arms. There's no way she could lift that. And then imagine trying to drag 80 pounds by your head.
In reality, there might be a lot of friction on the ground that's going to pull the hair back and strain her motion. We didn't want that for the film, so we developed different ways to kind of trick physics.
Yay!
To make sure the hair still looked like it had weight to it, but that it could still glide easily with her while she moved. So there was a lot of art direction to try and make it do what maybe it wouldn't do in the real world, but what we want it to do in our tangled world.
In fairy tales, you can take liberties with hair physics. For Science Friday, I'm Flora Lichtman.
So that's one example, and I'm sure you'll have seen several movies like that, right? You'll remember Frozen. All the animated movies pretty much use computer science in a gazillion ways. I mean, those movies are there in front of us to watch because of computer science. I'm going to show you a couple more small examples that will give you a sense for the, the different things that you could be doing with this stuff. Albert, could we play the first one, please? And we'll just watch this for a few minutes. It's a longish video.
I also put motors on. No turn.
My name is Leah Beakley, and I'm a professor at the MIT Media Lab, and I run a research group called High-Low Tech, and we're interested in blending high-tech stuff and low-tech stuff. So usually that translates to blending craft and technology. So for example, we've done a lot of work blending textile craft and technology. And we're also doing a lot of stuff more recently in blending paper crafts and technologies. So for example, figuring out how to embed electronics into paper crafts or into textile crafts. So one of the projects that I've been working on for quite a long time is the LilyPad Arduino project that tries to make textile and technology blending more accessible to a broad audience. And we're working right now on some toolkits that would make a blending of paper crafts and electronics more accessible to broad audiences.
The wall is painted with layers of, the colorful paint is just a regular acrylic paint, and these traces here that are kind of silverish, copperish, this is water-based conductive paint from LESIMF. It's non-toxic and it works really nicely. So you can basically paint the traces of a conductive circuit. Some of the traces are covered up now with the paint. Underneath the flowers, we have a big surface of big conductive area so that the flowers work as a capacitive sensor. You don't even have to touch them fully, you just need to get big enough with, not big enough, close enough with the body. And so you can turn on and off the different modules. Each flower is connected to this is an Arduino board that is designed with magnet connections and also designed, so this is the Arduino board with analog input, digital input, and an output. And this is a piggyback board, which is actually, if you look underneath here, this is an XB. And so each board can wirelessly communicate to a computer, so in that sense they're networked. They're not directly connected with each other on the wall. But these lights are also magnetic. So it's a little light module, LED module with power and ground. The ground on all the modules is the pointy part, which is just like convenient for knowing always which side is ground. And then this is a laser cut plexiglass structure, and then just a paper flower on top, and you can put these on these track and they can go anywhere along the track. And you can also put motors on. They'll turn, so kind of decorative.
Oh man! So we can stop there. So you guys put together some hardware, right? Before programming, who all built the Raspberry Pi, put it together before you all could program it? Yeah, cool. So hopefully, you know, it's not very hard. You can be putting together some of this kind of hardware and making your boots light up when you walk, or you could be drawing paper craft that lights up, you know. It's all possible, and it's not very hard once you've learned to code and learned to, you know, roll your sleeves up and put a few things together. So do you all want to watch a couple more videos just to get a sense? Are you enjoying them? Okay, let's play the next one, the Google Driverless Car.
As a boy, I loved cars. When I turned 18, I lost my best friend to a car accident, like this. And then I decided I'd dedicate my life to saving 1 million people every year. Now, I haven't succeeded, so this is just a progress report, but I'm here to tell you a little bit about self-driving cars. I saw the concept first in the DARPA Grand Challenges, where the US government issued a prize to build self-driving cars that could navigate a desert. And even though 100 teams were there, these cars went nowhere. So we decided at Stanford to build a different self-driving car. We built the hardware, the software, we made it learn from us, and we set it free in the desert. And the unimaginable happened. It became the first car to ever return from a DARPA Grand Challenge, winning Stanford $2 million, yet I still hadn't saved a single life. Since, our work has focused on building driving cars that can drive anywhere by themselves. Any street in California. We've driven 140,000 miles. Our cars have sensors on which they magically can see everything around them and make decisions about every aspect of driving. It's the perfect driving mechanism. We've driven in cities, like in San Francisco here. We've driven from San Francisco to Los Angeles on Highway 1. We've encountered joggers, busy highways, toll booths, and this is without a person in the loop. The car just drives itself. In fact, while we drove 140,000 miles, people didn't even notice. Mountain roads, day and night, and even crooked Lombard Street in San Francisco. Sometimes our cars get so crazy, they even do the little stunts.
Oh my God! What? It's driving itself.
No, I can't get my friend Harold back to life, but I can do something for all the people who died. Did you know that driving accidents are the #1 cause of death for young people? And do you realize that almost all of those are due to human error and not machine error, and can therefore be prevented by machines? Do you realize that we could change the capacity of highways by a factor of 2 or 3 if we didn't rely on human precision on staying in the lane, but on robotic precision, and thereby drive a little bit closer together, on a little bit narrower lanes, and do away with all traffic jams on highways? Do you realize that you, TED users, spend an average of 52 minutes per day in traffic, wasting your time on your daily commute? You could regain this time. This is 4 billion hours wasted in this country alone, and it's 2.4 billion gallons of gasoline wasted. Now, I think there's a vision here, a new technology, and I'm really looking forward to a time when generations after us look back at us and say how ridiculous it was that humans were driving cars. Thank you.
So So we'll stop at that. There's several other videos. In fact, I made a whole playlist on YouTube because I've shown these kind of videos as part of my research, you know, to middle school kids in various schools and classrooms to get them thinking about the many different things. And so I had the link down there, and it doesn't show, but it just says bit.ly/CS-rocks. And if you want, you can show your friends or, you know, take it to your class and show them. And there's one more video which we don't need to watch, but next week is Hour of Code. Did anybody hear about Hour of Code? Yeah, so actually next week, the entire week is CS Education Week, and code.org has put together several activities online which students can work on, and they say Hour of Code, but hopefully you do that hour of code and then you do many more hours of code, okay? Because if you enjoy it, you know, you can keep doing it. And so I won't be going into that video, but if you go, maybe we can play it sometime later on today. And so I just want to leave you all with a few different thoughts. So like that last video, the driverless car, he started with a personal problem, and so it, you know, and he decided to make it a problem that he'll solve for the world. You know, the problem of road accidents and wastage of gasoline, and the way they use computer science is through sensors and robotics and computer vision and programming. So it brings together so many different kinds of, you know, engineering and other disciplines. And like the tangled hair video, she was using ideas of physics and doing that. And the wall craft, you know, you could be doing, you know, paper, they were using conductive paint and paper and conducting, you know, electricity through those things to create those. So I just want to say, computer science affects work in many different fields: art and music and movies and biology and medicine and economics and politics and engineering, meteorology, journalism, you name it. And it's only going to get more and more because technology every day is advancing. And as a computer science, you could make a difference in any of these fields of your choice. I'm doing it in education. I decided to, because I enjoy education and I love teaching and learning and research, I decided to research how computer science should be taught amongst children. And so not just the field of, and you could be doing research in computer science itself too. And computer scientists reshape the boundaries of discovery and innovation. And so you want to be part of that future, right? And to girls, I want to say especially, being a computer scientist is cool and fun. Why just have the boys have all the fun, right? So you should do it too. And why is it important for girls and everybody to sort of do this together? Because diversity almost always sparks creativity and innovation. When males and females from diverse ethnic groups and cultures put their minds together, much cooler things happen, okay? So with that, I want to thank you all for listening and, you know, patiently watching the videos, and hopefully your minds are working though and thinking about the future and seeing yourself and dreaming some futures there. So, thank you. Yeah, if you all have any questions.
I know that some of you out there probably have some questions that you might like to ask. Does anybody have any questions they want to ask?
You're all too hungry and want to get to lunch?
No. I have a question.
Sure.
What's the most fun part of being a computer scientist when you were studying and in school and everything like that?
The most fun part? The most fun part, I would say, is to get something to work after you've been struggling over it for some time. Because it's, you know, almost always, and it happens in life too, you know, you have to struggle, you know, you don't always have to get things easy. In computer science, it happens a lot with programming and coding, but once you've sort of stuck with it and it finally works, oh, that feeling is so sweet. Yeah?
Have you encountered any roadblocks in your, have you encountered any roadblocks in your career, like problems? Stuff like that?
No, I wouldn't say there were roadblocks. It's more a matter of you know, decisions that you make, life decisions about where you want to live, about family, and you know, when you want to study. Like you've seen, I've kind of gone back to study a few times. Hopefully I'm done now that I'm done with my PhD. no more studies, and I'm getting old. My kids are in college now, my older one is. But so it's a matter of just working things out and sort of sticking with what you want to do, I think. And once you do that, I guess you're able to deal with those roadblocks, kind of just become things that you deal with. So yes, there's a question in the back.
What kind of programming do you use?
So I don't currently actively program. I'm actually currently using Python and R a lot because I'm doing a lot of data science and analytics work. But when my very first programming language was BASIC, something called BASIC, in around that time that that newspaper clipping a couple years later, I think over the summer, I studied BASIC. I studied COBOL, which was a language that was created by a lady called Grace Hopper, and that was one thing that I wanted to show. There's been so many women in computing, and the contributions of the women have been immense. So COBOL was a language for business that Admiral, she was in the Navy too, believe it or not. She was an admiral when she retired. Admiral Grace Hopper, created this language called COBOL. And then in my master's, with the thing that I talked about, where I was creating applications for connecting music and images for students of music, that was in a language called Smalltalk and C++. Have you heard of Scratch? Has anybody looked at Scratch or played with Scratch? Many of you. So the Scratch environment has been written in Smalltalk. So Scratch has been created in a language called Smalltalk, and that's a language that I used in the 90s. So Smalltalk and C, C++, and then Java. Yeah, those are the languages that I've used. But right now I'm using languages that I used for a lot of big data science, where you have to analyze lots of data and do sort of artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms, where you sort of train the program to make sense of big data.
Where did you work after you got your PhD?
I'm currently working. I got my PhD very recently, and I'm working at SRI International, which is a research lab down in Menlo Park. And they've got a very cool AI facility. Do you know Siri, the Siri that you use on iPhones? Siri was developed at SRI. And the Stanford dish that behind, in the hills behind Stanford was developed at SRI. So they've got a very cool computer science and AI lab, but I'm working in their education division, and we're working on building this, the computer science education group there. And that's where I work.
Shuchi, you've got the women in computing up behind.
Oh, that's awesome. So yeah, if we go down to G, there's Kimberly Bryant. She's here in Oakland, Black Girls Coach. She started that. If you go down, if you scroll down a little bit to G, Grace Hopper. I was talking about, yeah, go up a little bit, sorry. These are all famous women. In fact, some of these women that are listed on this page were amongst the first programmers of the ENIAC, which was the first digital computer. And there's that woman, Frances Spence, was this one. See, she was one of the original programmers of the ENIAC computer, and she was born in Philadelphia in 1922. And so lots of women doing very cool stuff in computer science. If we could go to G, there we go, Grace Hopper. See her in her uniform? She's an American computer scientist and a United States Navy Rear Admiral. And there, she led to the development of COBOL, one of the first modern programming languages. COBOL was used by all the banking software. You know, when you go to a bank and they punch in numbers and they let you, all that software was developed in COBOL. It's a business program.
Does anybody else have any questions? I have a microphone here.
I'll race you.
She's sometimes known as Amazing Grace, by the way, because of the song.
So how many years did you go to college?
How many years? In all, you mean how many years did I study after high school? Yeah. I did one master's in computer science, which was 2 years. I did another master's in education, which was 2 years. And then I did 5 years of a PhD. So I studied for 9 years after my high school, but that's not No, wait, I did my undergrad for 5 years because I did physics and computer science. I forgot that. So 5 and 5, 10 and 4, 14. But I did that with lots of exciting, fun projects in between. I didn't do it all at one go. You could do that too.
Any other questions? I can raise Kate again.
Any other questions over here? One more over there, yeah?
Hi. How do you handle being such an amazing educator and professional with being a mother?
Oh, that's a tough one. Actually, my children have somehow grown up seeing me. So when they were really little, I went back for my master's to Harvard. My husband has been supportive. We've sort of, we divide work well. The children have always sort of seen and sort of been a part. The incredible thing about this has been because I was studying children and computing, very often they were a part of my workshops that would come with me. Sometimes they would just sit and watch, sometimes they became, in fact, when they were a little older, they would sometimes run some of those, help around a little bit. And so it kind of, the years do fly by. And yeah, it is a challenge though. I don't think anybody has everything figured out, but you just work at it. And like I said, if you believe in the things that you're doing, and if you sort of have this dream to do something that you enjoy, then you sort of work at the other issues, and they kind of tend to work out. If you don't give up, you don't want to give up. So.
Great. I think we have one more question, one last question here.
Do you make chips for phones and laptops?
No, I've not made chips. But when I was in my undergrad in college, my final project was to program one of those chips. I don't even remember what it was for, but we had to write code in something called machine language, where you actually write code that operates at the chip level. And so I wrote code, and then that has to be burnt into the chip. So you sort of burn they were called EPROMs. And this was the 8088 chip, where right now, I've not created chips, but I've programmed chips in a very direct way. And that was ages ago, almost 25, 26 years ago.
Great, thank you. Now, do you have what's your advice, your parting advice for all the young women in the audience today? What would you tell them?
For all the young women in the audience, definitely try coding, definitely try at least the first computer science class in college or high school if you get an opportunity, and take it from there. And, computer science is cool, is going to be my last parting shot.
Wonderful, thank you so much.